My husband declined my promotion from my own email. The recruiter forwarded his message before the deadline, so I accepted the job before I confronted him. My name is Natalie. I am 36 and I had been married to Eric for 8 years. I worked in operations for a home products distributor, where one truck at the wrong dock could leave 6 stores short on weekend inventory. My job was to find the small failure before it became the expensive one, then build the sequence that got people and freight moving again. When my company opened a regional planning office in Dayton, the director who trained me encouraged me to apply for a network operations role. It was a promotion by 2 levels, with responsibility for 3 distribution centers instead of 1. I would need to be in Dayton 3 days most weeks during the first 6 months. The drive from our house outside Columbus could take more than an hour each way. I told Eric before I applied. He was a production supervisor at a local printing company, and he stared at the job description on my laptop as if it were a notice that I had already left. Why would you want to spend your life on the highway? I said I wanted the work. If I got an offer, we could test the commute, consider a short-term rental, or discuss moving later. He closed the laptop halfway. Moving where? I don't know. I don't even have an interview. Over the next 5 weeks, I had 3. Eric never asked what the hiring team thought of me. He asked whether they knew I was married and whether I had explained that Dayton was not my home. I told him I had promised only that I could meet the schedule. His reaction surprised me because he had celebrated my earlier promotions. The difference was that those jobs had kept me at the same distribution center. This one gave me authority across sites and forced us to decide whose work determined where we lived. Eric never said my career should remain smaller than his comfort. He said a married person could not treat an offer as an individual opportunity. I agreed the consequences belonged in our conversation. I did not agree that the answer belonged to both of us equally when only one name was on the offer. On Monday afternoon, Dana from Talent Acquisition offered me the position. I asked for the written terms instead of accepting on the phone. She emailed them and gave me until 5 o'clock Friday, the same decision window every finalist received. That night, I printed the offer and put it on the kitchen table. Eric read every page while his dinner got cold. "This is not a promotion," he said. "This is a transfer with a nicer title. It is both. You would be gone before I wake up and back after dinner. 3 days a week at first. We could find a small place there for the nights when the drive makes no sense. Or I could commute for a month and see what it is actually like." He tapped the page where the office location was listed. "We have a house. I know where we live. Then why are you talking about getting another place?" I told him I was trying to solve the problem, not leave him. He said every solution I offered assumed I was taking the job. I said every objection he offered assumed I was declining it. That was the first time he used the sentence that would later appear in the email. He said, "I am not doing another 6-week hotel marriage." He was referring to a warehouse conversion I had managed 2 years earlier. For 6 weeks, I had worked late shifts while a new inventory system went live. Eric started calling it our hotel marriage because we mostly saw each other asleep. Nobody at work knew he called it that. Even my closest colleague had only heard me refer to the Northgate conversion. I told him the new role was not Northgate. It had a schedule, a team, and an end to the heavy onboarding period. More important, this was not a crisis assignment someone had dropped on me. I wanted it. Eric pushed the offer back across the table. "You have until Friday," he said. Use the time. Tuesday morning, I opened Dana's benefits comparison on my personal laptop before work. Her messages came to the personal address attached to my original application, while final decisions went through a secure company portal. I left the email tab open when I rushed out. Eric was home because his plant was changing shifts after a maintenance shutdown. That evening, he said he had thought about our argument. I told him I wanted to accept, test the commute during onboarding, and reconsider the living arrangement after 90 days with real information. "Does any version of this end with you staying in your current job?" he asked. "Yes. If that is what I decide." He said I was announcing a choice and asking him to decorate it. We went to bed without resolving anything. At 9:12 Wednesday morning, Dana called my work number. "Natalie, I wanted to check before I close your file." "What file?" "The director offer. I received your decline yesterday." I told her I had sent no decision and asked her to forward the exact message while we stayed on the phone. It came from my personal address at 2:18 Tuesday afternoon. I think the hiring team said the travel conflicted with my responsibilities at home, and ended with a sentence nobody at work had heard. I do not want to repeat a 6-week hotel marriage for the sake of a title. Dana asked, "Did you send that?" No. I did not write or authorize it. The phrase was Eric's. He had been home, and my laptop had been open, but neither fact proved who touched the keyboard. I told Dana only what I knew. The decline was unauthorized, and the original Friday deadline had not passed. The role was still open. Dana said I could use the remainder of the original window, but after a disputed email she needed a clean decision path. I had to call from the number already in my employee file, complete a fresh identity check, and respond through the company portal on a managed work device. I changed my personal email password, signed out every session, and turned on an authentication app. A company technician then guided me through the activity page visible inside my own personal email settings. He had no provider or administrator access to that account. The page showed that a browser session on my laptop, using our home connection, was active at the time stamped on Dana's message. It did not show that this particular session sent the email, and it did not identify the person using the computer. The activity corroborated the home timeline. It did not establish attribution. I saved a screenshot of that page for my own timeline and wrote down its limits beside it. Active home session at the relevant time. Open laptop. Eric home. Private phrase in the message. Each fact narrowed the explanation, but none could honestly become Eric sent it until he said so. If I exaggerated the record to Dana, I would be using certainty I did not have to repair a message sent with authority its writer did not have. I sent Dana a note from my work account confirming that I had secured the personal account and had not authorized Tuesday's decline. I did not mention Eric. Human Resources called me through the number on file, had me show my employee badge and photo ID on camera, and issued a one-time portal link. By 11:30, Dana confirmed that the offer still expired at 5 on Friday. No extension, no special exception. She had simply not closed a live offer on the strength of a message I disputed. I asked to make my decision Thursday after one final scheduling call. "Make sure the decision is yours," Dana said. "That is the part I am sure about." I did not confront Eric by text. I wanted his answer before he had hours to build an explanation. When I got home, my laptop was closed on the dining table. Eric was in the garage sanding a cabinet door. I carried the computer outside and set it on his workbench. "Did you send Dana a message from my email?" The sander wound down. He lifted his safety glasses and looked at the laptop. "Who is Dana?" "The recruiter whose offer you declined for me. He said I was making an accusation because I was angry." I opened the forwarded email and turned the screen toward him. 6-week hotel marriage, I read. "You said that Monday night. You were home, my laptop was open, and a home session was active at the time. That does not identify the typist. I am asking you once. Did you send it?" He wiped sawdust from his hands and walked past me into the kitchen. I followed him. He filled a glass of water, drank half of it, and said, "You left it open." That was his first admission, though he still tried to make it sound like an explanation. "That does not answer the question. I sent it because you were not listening." I asked him to say exactly what he had done. He got louder. "Fine." I declined it. Somebody had to make the responsible decision before you blew up our life. I felt the strangest calm settle over me. The uncertainty was gone. He had not been protecting me from a scam or correcting a misunderstanding. He had impersonated me because he believed his judgment outranked mine. "You used my name," I said. "I used your email." "Do not make this criminal." I did not call it criminal. I said you used my name to make a career decision for me. He put the glass down hard enough to splash water onto the counter. Married people do not make decisions like that alone. I hadn't made it alone. I was still talking to you. You were waiting for me to surrender. So you made the decision alone and pretended to be me. He said we were a household, not two strangers with separate calendars. He listed the mortgage, the yard, his parents who lived 20 minutes away, and the dinners we would stop eating together. Some of those concerns were real. That was what made his choice worse. He had taken a hard conversation and replaced it with a false version of my consent. I told him the offer was still open. His face changed. "What do you mean, still open?" Dana checked before the deadline. I reported the message as unauthorized. I changed the password and completed a new identity check. "You told your company I hacked you?" "No." I told them I did not send the message. I did not name you because you had not admitted it yet. He stared at me. Then he asked whether I had recorded him. I had not. I told him I did not need a recording to decide what his admission meant for our marriage. He paced between the kitchen and living room, saying I had embarrassed him to people he would never meet. I asked whether he understood that Dana had read a private description of our marriage because he had put it in my mouth. He said that was different because he had been trying to save us. Save us from what? From me becoming somebody who thinks this house is too small. The promotion had never been about the size of our house. But that sentence finally named the fear beneath all his practical objections. He thought my job would change the balance between us, and he preferred to stop the change without my knowledge. I asked when he had decided to send the email. He said it was after lunch, when he saw Dana's notification beside the open benefits document. He read the offer again, opened the reply window and typed until the decline sounded like something I might write. The private phrase was deliberate. He thought it would make the answer sound personal enough that Dana would not question it. Did you delete the sent message so I would not see it? He looked away. I archived it. That was another choice, not a reflex. He had composed the decline, borrowed a detail from our marriage to make it convincing, and moved the copy out of sight. Then he asked me to solve the problem by sending a new decline myself. If the decision came through the verified portal, he said, nobody at work would have to know there had been confusion. You still want the same outcome, I said. You just want my fingerprints on it now. He called that unfair. I called it the first accurate thing either of us had said about his request. I went upstairs and packed enough clothes for 2 nights. Eric followed me, first angry, then suddenly reasonable. He said we should sleep before either of us did something permanent. I said I agreed about slowing down, which was why I was going to my sister Mia's apartment instead of deciding the marriage in the middle of a shouting match. At the door, he asked, if you leave tonight, are you coming back? I am coming back for my things. I don't know yet whether I am coming back to live. That was the first consequence he could not turn into a debate about commuting. Mia lived 30 minutes away in a 1-bedroom apartment and worked early shifts at a bakery. I arrived after 8 with a duffel bag and the printed offer. She did not tell me what to do. She made tea, read the email Eric had sent, and asked whether I still wanted the job before any of this happened. Yes. Then do not let accepting it become revenge, she said. Take it because it is yours. That question kept me honest. If Eric had apologized immediately, if he had understood the violation, if the email had never been sent, I still would have wanted the role. Accepting it was not punishment. Refusing it now would teach both of us that his sabotage worked. Mia went to bed before dawn for her bakery shift, but I stayed at her table with the offer and a notebook. I listed 3 workable plans: commute every day during onboarding, rent near Dayton for part of the week, or move there temporarily while Eric and I lived apart. The first would consume hours I needed for the new team. The second required trust and coordination we no longer had. The third cost money and made the separation visible, but it did not require Eric's cooperation. I checked my current salary against rent, the mortgage contribution, fuel, and basic moving costs. I wanted to know whether I could act before the first higher paycheck arrived. The numbers were tight, but possible. That meant the choice did not depend on a future payment or on Eric agreeing to fund it. Thursday morning, I joined the final scheduling call from a conference room at work. Dana and the hiring director explained that I would spend the first 12 weeks in Dayton 4 days a week, not 3, because the new office was still building its team. After that, the role would settle into the schedule described in the offer, depending on operational needs. That was harder than I had expected. It meant I could not pretend the commute would be easy. I asked for 20 minutes to consider the revised onboarding detail. The hiring director reminded me it was not a new condition. The offer already allowed a heavier initial schedule. She was clarifying what they now expected. I called a furnished apartment company near the Dayton office. The shortest option they had was an expensive 3-month lease. I thanked them and declined. Then I called 2 ordinary apartment buildings I had bookmarked during the interview process. The second had a small 1-bedroom available month to month. Because the owner planned to renovate it in the winter, the rent would fit my current budget if I reduced other spending. I did not count the promotion salary before I had started earning it. I scheduled a viewing for Saturday. Then I called Dana from my verified number. opened the one-time portal link on my company laptop, and accepted the promotion at 10:46 Thursday morning. The confirmation page showed my start date 3 weeks away. I saved a copy to the secure employee drive and closed the browser. There was no dramatic music, no applause, and no rush of victory. I had simply made the decision Eric had tried to erase. He called 4 times before lunch. I let the calls go to voicemail while I finished a staffing plan. His first message asked me to come home so we could reset. His second asked whether I had accepted. His third said silence was cruel. In the fourth, he said, "If you take that job now, you are choosing it over this marriage." I texted one sentence: "I accepted the offer. We can discuss the marriage with a counselor, but I will not withdraw." By that evening, both families knew a version of the story. My mother called and asked why I had left my husband over a promotion. Eric had told her we disagreed about relocation, and I walked out after he begged me to wait. He had not mentioned the email. I asked her, "Did he tell you he declined the offer from my account while pretending to be me?" She went quiet. I forwarded her the message, then called Eric's mother because she had already texted me that marriage required compromise. I told her the same facts without asking her to take sides. The offer was mine. The decline was not, and Eric had admitted sending it. She said he was scared. He was allowed to be scared. He thought he was protecting your home. He was allowed to tell me that. He was not allowed to answer as me. Eric accused me of turning our families against him. I reminded him that he had contacted them first. I did not send the email to anyone else. I did not post about it or call his workplace. My goal was not to expose him to the largest possible audience. It was to stop his edited story from becoming the only one our families heard. The calls did not make the decision easier. My mother worried that separate housing would turn one violation into a permanent break. Eric's mother reminded me that he had worked extra shifts when I managed Northgate. Both things were true. Gratitude for what he had done 2 years earlier did not give him permission to answer a current offer in my name. I told them I was not asking either family to decide whether the marriage survived. I was asking them to stop pressuring me to make his preferred outcome real. On Friday night, we met at a quiet diner near Mia's place. I chose public ground because I wanted both of us to keep our voices down. Eric looked exhausted. He said he had made one terrible decision under pressure. He apologized for using the email, but every apology had a hinge. He was sorry, but I had cornered him. He was sorry, but the job really did threaten our marriage. He was sorry, but I had repaired the problem before any permanent damage was done. I told him the damage was not whether I recovered the offer. It was learning what he would do when my answer might differ from his. He slid his phone across the table. On the screen was the website for a marriage counselor. "I found someone," he said. "We can start next week. But you need to pause the job while we fix this." "My start date is set." "Then you already decided the marriage is over." "No. I decided you do not get to make accepting your veto a condition of counseling." He pulled the phone back. I asked if he would attend counseling while I started the role and lived closer to Dayton during onboarding. He said, "If you get an apartment, you are moving out." I said, "After what happened, I am moving out for now whether I take the job or not." That was the moment the conversation stopped being about a hypothetical commute. I had not yet seen the apartment, but the boundary was underway. Saturday morning, Mia drove with me to Dayton. The apartment was on the second floor of an older brick building 12 minutes from the office. The kitchen cabinets had been painted too many times, and one bedroom window looked directly at a fire escape. It was not an upgrade from my house. That mattered to me. I was not chasing a glamorous new life. I needed a place where my account, my work, and my decisions were mine while I figured out what remained of the marriage. The landlord showed me the month-to-month terms. I read every page at the kitchen counter and paid the deposit from my individual checking account. Eric and I had maintained personal accounts for discretionary spending and a joint account for household bills. I did not empty the joint account or cancel payments on the house. I transferred enough of my next paycheck into my personal account to cover the apartment and left my normal share for the mortgage and utilities while we worked out a longer arrangement. I signed the lease. On the drive back, Eric called Mia. I do not know why he thought she would persuade me after giving me a place to sleep. She put him on speaker only after asking me. He said, "Natalie is blowing up 8 years over one email." I answered, "I am responding to what the email proved you were willing to do." He asked if I had signed anything. I said yes. For once, he did not argue. He ended the call. The next 2 weeks were not clean or satisfying. I moved boxes after work, one carload at a time. Eric alternated between helping and trying to restart the entire argument. He carried my desk chair to the car, then stood beside the trunk and asked if a director title was worth eating dinner alone. I told him, "You keep asking what the job costs. You still have not asked what your choice cost." He put the chair in the trunk and walked back inside. We attended one counseling session before my start date. The counselor asked Eric what he believed would happen when he sent the decline. He said he thought I would be disappointed for a few weeks, then relieved when life stayed normal. Did you expect her to discover it? The counselor asked. No. That answer did more than any apology. He had not acted in a confused moment expecting a conversation afterward. He had expected me to live inside a decision I believed I had made. The counselor asked whether he had considered telling me afterward. Eric said that would have defeated the point because I would have contacted Dana. She asked what he believed marriage authorized him to do. He said it gave each spouse a duty to protect the life they had built when the other person could not see the risks clearly. Who decided Natalie could not see clearly? She asked. Eric did not answer. For the first time, someone outside our families had separated his fear from his authority. The fear was understandable. The authority was something he had assigned himself. The counselor asked what repair would look like to me. I said I did not know whether the marriage could be repaired, but the minimum was that Eric stop describing my acceptance as the original betrayal. He would have to acknowledge that the separation began with his impersonation, not with my job. He said he needed time to accept that. I said time was available. Control was not. The night before my first day, I slept in the Dayton apartment. I had a folding table, my desk chair, 2 lamps, and a mattress on a simple frame. Rain hit the fire escape outside the bedroom window. I missed my kitchen. I missed the weight of Eric turning over in bed. Missing those things did not make the least wrong. At 7 the next morning, I walked 12 minutes to the new office. Dana met me in the lobby with a temporary badge, and by the afternoon I was working with the 3 sites I had accepted responsibility for. During my first planning call, one manager flagged a launch estimate that exceeded the warehouse capacity. I asked for the numbers, showed the gap, and moved the launch by 2 days. People questioned the decision, I explained it, and nobody tried to answer in my name. On Thursday, Eric texted to ask if we were separated. I answered yes. He asked whether that meant divorce. I said I would not invent a final outcome by text. We were living separately, keeping our agreed share of the house bills current, and seeking advice about the property. I would attend counseling only if he respected that the job was no longer negotiable. When I finished my first month, those facts had not changed. I had accepted before the original deadline, moved out on the date in my lease, and started the role. Eric could apologize, but he could not unsend the email, turn his admission into a misunderstanding, or make my acceptance disappear. I do not know whether we will rebuild it. I know the condition under which I would try. He has to understand that marriage gives him a voice in hard decisions, not ownership of mine. If your spouse made a life-changing decision in your name and admitted they expected you never to find out, would any apology be enough to rebuild trust?